Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Circle of the World podcast, where we discuss Joe Abercrombie's First Law series. I am one of your hosts, Lord Chamberlain Jeffrey, and here are my co-hosts.
Dr. George.
And Harrison, the Adeptus Historical.
As you know, we continue our coverage of Last Argument of Kings, the third book in the original trilogy. So for this episode, we'll be covering the First Law, Tea and Threats, and Behind the Throne. So let's get started. As usual, you know by now, this is our third book. I am just going to continue to thank you all for your continued, long-lasting, loyal support.
Kind of sound threatening there.
Ever since I learned that my title's heritage or nomenclature came from cleaning chamber pots and shit streaks, I haven't been in the best mood, all right? So I just want to thank you all for continuing to support us. We appreciate it. I know I do from the bottom of my heart. And as a token of our appreciation, we are going to be doing a giveaway of sorts. So when this episode releases, which will be this Friday, we are going to start the giveaway process. I will let Harrison and George explain more.
It was all George's idea. He just thought that
it really was.
As we're coming up on the holidays, it might be nice to give back to somebody out there who maybe doesn't wanting to spend $60 on the special limited edition, but we thought it'd be a nice thing to do. So I got a couple, one for us, one to give away.
Well, explain what it is that you got.
It's the Great Change book.
Ooh,
that Joe has just released.
Spicy.
There are still some signed and numbered copies, and those are the couple that we got. So, in terms of how we're actually going to give it away, George, what was your idea?
So we're just going to put a post up on Instagram and on Twitter, and you've just got to share it and send us an email at the same time so that we can put everybody's emails into a scrambler and get the winner. So we're going to be putting that up on Friday, and we'll be giving it away probably around Christmas, just closer to Christmas time, I think. And
by Friday, he means today, because
today, the day that you're listening to it right now.
November
17th. After now, if you look on Instagram on our page, it will be up, and cross fingers to actually do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and we'll probably put it on Reddit too.
Yeah, Instagram, Twitter, and Reddit. We'll put it up there. Just the main thing is like share it to as many people as possible, right, George?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because we want to pretend like we're doing this out of the kindness of our hearts.
Right.
We would like some more interaction as well.
Wink, wink. And then, is it at random, or is it from what we can count the one that has shared it the most?
I think from at random would probably be best.
Yeah.
I mean, if you share it on one account or two or three, it's up to you.
So the one that does it the most is what you said.
Well, I think everybody gets a chance. So every time you share it, it's a chance. So you prove that you shared it 3 times.
At least 3 times. And then
maybe we should figure this out beforehand.
What I mean is, right, whenever you share, you get 1 chance to answer. Mm-hmm. So that will go in the pot. So if somebody shares 3 times, then you get 3 chances, and your name will go into the pot 3 times.
Okay, that makes sense. I like that. Very well done. Well done. So yeah, everyone, share a post. Share the same post that we're gonna make for the giveaway, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. So we'll make a post. Share that one, and then maybe
and then you'll get your hands on a nice mint signed numbered copy of The Great Change, and that is the one with all the nice pretty art.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, signed by Joe Abercrombie. We should make that clear, not by us.
No, by us. No, we don't. We can't sign.
No, it'll be signed by me.
You just scribble out Joe's name, right, Harrison?
yeah, smart guy.
I'll just put my handprint on the inside of the page. You're like, oh, that's me.
Circle of the World, Circle of the World, The Great Change copy.
Yeah, that's gonna go down in value. Yeah, right. So yeah, as soon as we get our hands on that copy and we have a winner, we'll send it out to you once we get your information. And so just as usual, just want to remind you all to please follow us on our social media platforms and our YouTube page. As you all know, I've personally been going through a lot of life changes, I guess we could say, and thankfully, within a couple weeks, it's gonna be done. And then Harrison's been doing a lot with work, and George has been going through a lot as well. And soon, our YouTube page will be back to its former glory.
I'm very much looking forward to getting more stuff done.
Yeah, boy. Alrighty, so let's move on to our first chapter read through, which is the first law. So we start off with the perspective of our girl, our homie, our
Boothang.
I was gonna try to rhyme killer with something, but can't do it. Whatever. Pharaoh Malgin. She's in her room in the Agrion, and she's kind of just chilling and staring at her hand, the one that held the seed, and it's the same hand. She didn't get a transplant or something, but it's very different. It's still cold, ice cold, because she grabbed the seed with that hand. And she tried to even wrapping it in blankets, bathing it in hot water, putting it near the fire, so near that she burned herself, and nothing changed. And she keeps hearing these little whispering voices calling out to her. And she's, looking all over the place. And, there's nothing that she could see on a corporeal plane, right? Nothing that she actually is tangible. Then she hears knocking on the door, and who else enters but our boy Baez. He's like
everybody's
hey.
favorite wizard.
Yeah, right. Everyone's favorite Magus, whatever. And
Magus. Magus.
I just like triggering, all Magie.
It's nowhere near as dramatic as I am first at the Magi.
Magi. It's Magi, right? Magi.
Yeah.
It's a Magus.
Magus. It is Magus, though, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
He said Magus.
I know. MAGA. Sorry. Just kidding. So Baez enters, and he's a little like, "Hey, chill out, girl," because she's, she has her knife at the ready, and he's, there's no enemies here, and she doesn't even kind of do the small talk. She just cuts right through it. It's, she asks him what happened with the wind, and he just goes, "What? We won. That's what happened, baby." And then she asks him, "What about those shapes? Those shadows?" And at this point, I do believe him when he's like oblivious. He goes, I saw nothing besides, Mamoon and the other eaters, getting the punishment that they deserve.
I mean, that is the question, though. Is he just playing obliviousness?
Well, he's not a demon, and he didn't hold the seed.
That's true.
He's not the devil blood here.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Like Ptolemy, we know she's a devil blood, obviously being Canadius' daughter, but not Baez, right?
Yeah.
So, and then she asked him if he heard voices. He did not. He heard nothing over the thunder of their victory, and she still hears voices, right? And he asked her, "What do they tell her?" And she says that they speak of locks and gates and doors and the opening of them. And they ask about the seed. Where is the seed? And he just says safe. So I guess he's smart here. And then he says, if you really do hear them from the other side, just remember that they are made of lies. And then she says, well, they're not alone. They asked me to break the first law just like you did. And then Baez is very proud at this moment. He's like, open it to interpretation. See, what I did was I used Glustrad's disciplines with the techniques of the master maker, Canadius, and I used the seed as the engine for my art.
What a nerd!
Goof. And then here we see
I love how he's like just patting himself on the back still, like a week
for real.
later. It's like, you were
Yeah.
there, of course. It was, above all, a triumph of will.
It's like when you have that friend, you know, you're just chilling. You've already turned in your paperwork, your homework, and everything, and then your friend does it that very last second as you're walking into school, and he's like, "As you can see, I'm clearly a genius for having completed this and gotten an A." You were there, of course. Me struggling, oh, it's nothing.
You understand.
All
You
according to
saw
my
it.
plan.
And then he so I like what Pharaoh here is kind of trying to hold him responsible here, right? She tells him that you tampered with the seals, you put the world at risk. And he says, Baez responds by saying that the first law is a paradox, that whenever you change a thing, you're always borrowing from the world below, and there's always risk. If he's crossed the line, it is a line of scale only, which we should talk about in a bit. But he does, he says the world is safe, is it not? And he makes no apologies for the ambition of his vision. That, I don't know if that kind of flies. And then, Pharaoh says that they're burying men, women, and children in, pits. Each pit is like 100 people. Just same thing as AUKUS, this sickness. It's the same thing. It's because of what they did. So is that ambition? The size of the graves. And then, Baez, he doesn't give a fuck. He just kind of waves it off. He's like, a side effect I didn't foresee. It's just, the price of victories is the same now as it was back then in the old time. But if I broke the first law, and this time he's looking at her with like a challenging look, a challenging gaze. He says, but if I broke the first law, so what? Who's going to judge me? What jury? Are you going to let Ptolemy out from the house of the maker? Are you going to bring over Zacharias to read the charge? How about Cornel? How about them? What about Juvens? I don't think so. I'm first of the Magi. I am the last authority, and I say I am righteous. Pharaoh says, you? No. But then Baez goes, yes. Power makes all things right. That is my first law and my last. That is the only law that I acknowledge. We are really, in these next two chapters, we're really seeing Baez. Like, truly
Baez just basically just outed himself as like a fascist. Like, it's like, might is right. That's it. Fuck you.
Yeah, he in all three of these chapters, it's like the villain arc. But there was no arc. He was always this way. Although I will say that for villain speeches, this is a really good one.
Yeah.
How he delivers it, and especially how Pacey says it, and I say I am righteous. Like it's really good.
Yeah. And Pharaoh's still kind of wrestling with this. She mentions that Zacharias had warned her, that he told her to run and never stop running, and she should have listened to him. But then, Baez retorts by saying, like, oh,
like how he just immediately says, oh, that bladder of self-righteousness, and he's literally called him self-righteous, like, like 5 minutes ago. You're meant to be smart, Baez. What are you doing?
Yeah, no. He's no self-awareness is in one of his best facets of his personality.
It is not one of his many great qualities.
It's not. And he tells her, oh yeah, maybe you should have, but that ship has sailed, baby. You just wave that ship along, and instead you wanted to feed your fury, and guess what? Good thing you did, because look what happened. And don't pretend that I lied to you. You knew that we were going to walk dark paths. But Pharaoh, is looking at her hands, and she's like, she's struggling. She didn't expect this. And Baez asks her, what did you expect? He thought that she was made of stronger stuff. He says, let us leave the philosophizing to those with more time and fewer scores to settle. Guilt, regret, righteousness. It's like talking with the great King Giselle, who has the patience for that. And then he tells her that she should stay near him, that in time Khalul will probably send other agents, and then he will have need of her talents once again. And then, she tries to retort by saying, so what, just sit here with the shadows for company until then? And then he goes, until then, Pharaoh, just smile. If you can remember how. because you have your vengeance. And then that's a break right there.
Which their last little conversation there of Baez talking with Pharaoh, I think is it's similar to how Logan talks to Baez. Like, yes, Baez is shown to be this obviously bastard, and we agree with our main characters in the moment because we're like, yeah, Baez is a jerk face. They didn't know, but Logan never asked, and Pharaoh knew exactly what he was the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll see the Giselle thing here in a minute too. But I really like how there's this interesting format of, yes, it's been revealed that Baez is a bad guy, but it's not actually new information, especially when you reread it. And when you reread it, you realize that, like, our main characters, almost all of them are just being immature about the whole situation because Baez, and other than being a bastard, hasn't actually done anything to each of these individuals.
Mm-hmm.
Like, not until, we'll see in a minute. But even then, that thing is in retort to how he's being treated. I mean, he's a bastard. But our main characters are all kind of being immature whenever they're acting like, Baez, God, you just didn't tell me. He's like, what? What are you talking about?
I mean, I think Pharaoh might be a little bit more of an exception in this case because Baez did have to convince her a couple of times.
Yeah.
At certain points, where she was just like, "No, there's no way I'm going with you." And Baez is like, "Yeah, but don't you want your revenge?"
He's just dangling it like a carrot. Like,
yeah, dangling the carrot.
But that plays into it. He literally like walks away from her and says, "I don't see the big deal, Pharaoh. You got your vengeance," which is it's just true. Like he gave her what she wanted. Like he wasn't just trying to manipulate her. He wanted her on side and everything. But like he did, I mean, he followed up on his promise with all of their promises. Actually,
he did.
So yeah, he's a bastard, all right. But I think it's just cleverly written on how you can see it in different lights.
Yeah, no, for sure. So there's a bit of a break. We get the, we come back to Pharaoh. This is the nighttime. She's sleeping and then had a bit of a nightmare, it seems like, right? She's thrashing in her sleep because she hears voices saying, "Let us in." And she's, just freaked. She wakes up and she's just dealing with a lot right now with hearing these voices. And then, she notices that the window's open. She's like, "Man, what the fuck? I didn't leave this shit open. It's fucking cold ass draft. What the fuck?" So she closes the window, bolts it, turns around, and there's a figure just chilling in the corner. A one-armed figure in rags with some pieces of armor still strapped. And his face was a dusty ruin, skin hanging in scraps from white bone. But he's still familiar to Pharaoh. This is Mamun. Mamun is still alive, ladies and gents. And
somehow Mamun returned.
Yeah. Well, I will say, it actually contributes more to the fact. There's a bit of power scaling that like he does here. I don't think he does it intentionally, but like we know how powerful Mamun is. He's supposed to be like as powerful as the Magi, if not stronger in some ways. And he's shown to be that way. He was super hard to kill, even in the midst of a huge storm that was tearing apart buildings with ease. So we already know he's strong. He survives that, and then we'll see in a minute just how powerful somebody else is. So
yeah,
I think it's to show that.
No, for sure, because we all got the sense that Mamun was Khalul's first apprentice, and Baez is so familiar with Mamun, we have to imagine that he was around back even when Juvens was around. So he's probably, in terms of, like you said, power scaling, just the length of time, because, imagine the more time passes, the stronger you get in terms of your power levels. And Mamun's up there. He has to be up there. So he's only an apprentice in name, I would assume. So he's up there, and so he tells her, "Hey, we meet again," and she Pharaoh says, "I'm dreaming," and he says, "You're gonna wish that you were." And then he just crosses the room in an instant. His hand closes around her throat, and then just whacks her right against the wall. And that he's really hungry because it took him a long time to dig himself out of that ruin of all the building collapsing on him and everything. So he says he's gonna, by eating her, he's gonna make himself a new arm, and he's gonna heal, and then he's gonna strike down Baez and take vengeance for great Juvens. And the prophet has seen it, and he will turn his vision into truth. And he tells her to, say your prayers, child, and hope that God is merciful. And he's about to bite
I love
her.
how he's like, sorry, Jeff. I love how he's just like monologuing like this when she hasn't said a word. She's just like, I'm dreaming, and then that was it. She's like, oh, fuck.
Yeah. Spend too much time talking. Why? So he's about to bite into her, I guess, and bite right into her fucking face. She's feeling weak, and then out of nowhere, her finger goes through his neck, through his skin, into his flesh. She goes right to the knuckle, and it drives his head away. So this is the hand, I'm assuming, that has the seed, not that held the seed. Yeah. And then she grabs her other hand. She grabs his hand, takes it away from her throat, and then bends his fingers backwards to the point where they just break, and then and she keeps driving her hand further into his throat, upwards, inwards, and then kind of like hooks her fingers together into his jaw, and she says, take my flesh, would you? Well, you've had your last meal. And she fish hooked his jaw and just ripped it out. And then he just collapsed and died. Oh no, before that, then she grabs his head, puts a palm on either side of the head, and then just kind of just squeezes until his skull burst apart. So as we could see, the seed had changed Pharaoh, similarly to how it changed Ptolemy. And whoopsie daisy, she just
yeah, she's a bit fucking OP now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. She's even like, like, oh wait, now I actually can go do whatever I want. Now I'm a god.
Yeah. Oh, look at that. And then the tellers of secrets are like, yes. And then she goes, you know what? I'm not even worried anymore. She opens the window, jumps, lands on the grass. When that must have been a far jump, right? And then she starts running. And then she starts running kind of like away from the house of the maker, away from things, more towards the south. And then the voice is like, hey, wait a minute. Pharaoh, what the fuck? Go, the seed, go. We need to get to the seed. No, find Baez. It's, get the seed. And she's just ignoring them. She's doing parkour over the Agrion to go to, to leave the Agrion, to leave Adjua. She's going to go down south. She's going to go find her vengeance because she now has the means to take it. And so she's going to go all the way down to Gurkle, and she is going to lay some whoop ass around them motherfuckers. Right?
Hell yeah. And
Hell yeah.
I love that Pharaoh actually gets, I know it seems a bit hollow for her to not, change from her original kind of idea of getting vengeance the whole time.
Time is a flat circle, man.
Time's a flat circle.
Sorry.
But no, I really love the fact that Pharaoh gets some semblance of a actual revenge, and not just what Baez gives her.
Right. She's taking some of it for herself, for sure.
Yeah, she's getting her own agency.
Yep. It's kind of like whenever people say, what was that post that was on Reddit the other day where they said, is it true that nobody ever gets what they want, no one achieves their goals inside this series, and it's all depressing? I mean, like, Pharaoh got exactly what she wanted. She found the means to be able to have her vengeance. And I would say she probably, between Logan and, the way she was talking about those people suffering, she didn't really like it. I think she, over time on this journey, has kind of remembered, what it is to to live a little bit. So yes, she's got her vengeance, and she also has remembered what humanity is a little bit. But
yeah. And so the chapter ends with all the voices screaming at her, and telling her, begging her to break the seals to get the seed, to open the seals, and all that jazz. She just straight up ignored them because she's happy now, because she realizes that she has no masters, and that ends our first chapter read through. Boys, what do you rate that chapter?
what do you rate it, Jeff?
It was cool. It's short. I mean, it's cool to see Pharaoh kind of coming to terms with the cost of obtaining vengeance on a large scale. And then also it's cool to see her handle Mamoon. We get Baez's, and we see deeper into Baez's philosophy, his mindset. But it was pretty short. I'm vacillating between 5 and a knuckle and 6. I'll go 5 and a knuckle out of 9 fingers.
Yeah, I was going to give it a 6 as well, because it's one of the first of the because we're wrapping up now. But
yeah,
I love the fact that Pharaoh gets kind of what she wanted, and it wouldn't be a Joe Abercrombie book if it was just all perfect and Pharaoh was actually happy with it. I think that would be too much to ask. But like you say, Jeff, it's fairly simple, and we've had most of this development up until now anyway. So it's
Yep. So 6 out of 9 for you?
Yeah.
Okay. Harrison?
I think 5 and a knuckle for me too. Reasons you guys said. I do, as one little thing before we move on, was she did also say maybe when she was done with the South and defeating Kowloon and all the eaters and stuff, she'd come back and deal with Baez.
Yeah.
I always found that line interesting for the future. But
well, I do have to say she did then say after that, right? That she goes, but then, liar or not, he had kept his word to her in the end. He had given her the means of vengeance.
Right. Exactly. Maybe though. Maybe she would.
Yeah. So maybe not, right?
Yeah.
And what did I say we should talk about? We should talk about how was it? Oh, Baez, right? Where he one thing I wanted to notice, a couple things, like Baez is obviously in this chapter. We see him just not really give a fuck in terms of the damage that what he did, the damage that it brought about. I mean, for him, it's about like he's like, you know what, the ends justify the means. But another thing,
might is right.
Yeah, might is right. But another thing I want to point out is, we see Mamoon, right? And Mamoon in this moment, right, it's just him and Pharaoh. He doesn't, like, there's no incentive for him to kind of keep up a facade or a lie or anything. But still, even when he's about to try to kill Pharaoh, he still says, get revenge for Juvens. I mean, this is like, and it's like those little moments where for me, it kind of hardline confirms that Baez did do some dirty shit with Juvens. For me, personally.
Yeah, I mean, you can definitely see it that way, especially if, like you say, the Mamoon's been around since that time.
Yeah.
Could definitely see him, like, fucking stewing about it for hundreds of years. But at the same time, like, that could just be what Khalul's told him.
For sure. That's absolutely.
I would say you're right for the most part. The only argument against it is how Baez talks and all these little things when he talks about stuff. It could be he did directly, but he's definitely not proud of it. He considers it one of his mistakes, which he does have, because he never mentions it whenever he mentions his pride. Oh, I did this, and I did this. I threw down the Master Maker. I did this. Just like he doesn't mention Ptolemy. Obviously, he pushed her off, right. after Canadius. So, he's not proud of that either, it seems. So it's probably, again, yes, he did, but it's more complicated than that. We'll probably never know how. But
right. Okay. Alrighty. Well, that was our first chapter read through. So let's move on to our next segment, which is best meme of the week. Georgie boy, take it away.
So we have Tamel Poor this week. It's been a
Yay!
while.
He's
It's been a couple of weeks, isn't it? Yeah.
He's
Return
back,
of the King.
baby.
And this one would have been really good at the beginning of this series, but it's the scene from the fucking Room, the very, very famous. I did not hit her. I did not. Oh, hi, Giselle. after West beats the shit out of RD in the first book.
It's terrible.
It's awful.
I did not.
I did not hit her. Oh, I can't even. Oh, there's nothing to explain about that. You get it. It's in the link.
You get it.
Nice.
All right, so we'll move on to our second chapter read through, which is Tea and Threats. Thank you for that, George. And we start off with the perspective of Logan Ninefingers. And we are in a large hall. Not sure what hall we're in right now. Do you know which one we're in? Oh, I think are we in the chamber
it's the
mirror?
whole, must be the Hall of Mirrors.
Yeah, the mirrors. Right, that one. So I can't tell if it's like a bit of a dinner or more just like, hey, we're bringing in all the important people in this room.
Yeah, it's like a press conference.
More like a press conference. Makes sense. that just made me laugh.
Just no questions.
Yeah, no questions. And he's looking around and he's not feeling too thrilled to be there. He looks at all the nobles and everybody with their false smiles, their false talk. He looks at. He says there was a sneering cripple who asked all the questions that day in the tower, now dressed all in white, which is Glocta. There was a fat man with a face full of broken veins, looked as if he started each day with a bottle. That's Hoff. There was a tall, lean bastard in a black breastplate covered in fancy gold with a soft smile and hard little eyes. I'm assuming Orso. And he thinks they're all like just a pack of liars. And then the worst one of them all is, for him, he says it. He says, Baez sat with an easy grin on his face, as if everything turned out the way he planned. And he goes, damn wizard, should have known better than to trust a man with no hair. Which is...
It's so random.
It's like, okay, so that's why you shouldn't trust him. It's because he's bald. Okay, got it. Makes sense. Then he looks around and he sees Giselle, and Giselle is looking comfortably. He's looking comfortable enough in his his garb, his kingly royal garb. And then Logan notices Giselle's wife, which we know to be Queen Therese of Talons. He could tell that she has she's got a prideful look to her. She's very gorgeous, but that she has this look when she looks at Giselle that she can barely stop herself from tearing into him with her teeth. And then Logan goes, well, she could have had a little bite out of Logan if she wanted, but what woman in her right mind would? And then,
and as always, Logan kind of has it half right. It's like with Baez, he's like, oh, I shouldn't have trusted him because he's bald, and he's like, and then he looks at Therese and he's like, she seems very fierce. Like, oh, she must be really into him.
Yeah, she must be great in the sack. And then,
what a lucky bastard! He always seems to land on his feet, which is what a lot of people think about Giselle.
Right. And then Logan kind of looks at himself, I guess, in the mirrors, and he's noticing, he's dressed up in, furs and everything, looking like a king, I guess, should be from the north. And he thinks he looks like a villain out of some children's story, and maybe that he really was that ruthless warrior, that man. And he just, I guess he's struggling with placing himself, with squaring the whole, like, he was out of the high places, a year or two ago, and now he's king of the Northmen.
Yeah.
And then he's actually like noticing that like Hoff is talking, and Hoff says that the Lord's Round is in ruins. So for the time being, has been decided, until like a new Lord's round will be built. It's been decided that the open council will stand in recess. The nobles are confused. They're like, wait a minute, how are we going to be heard? Like, when will the nobles have their voice? And then Hoff tells the nobles that they're going to speak to the closed council or may apply to the undersecretary for audiences to obtain a hearing with the king. And then when somebody says, but any peasant can do that. And then Hoff goes, yeah, your point. And then they all start like kind of like bitching at each other. And then
just before you move on anymore, Jeff, you completely glossed over the best. Say one thing for Logan Nine Fingers. Say he's a cunt.
He's completely fallen into self-deprecation, which imagine this is what he was like when he's full blown bloody nine. He was like, oh, I just hate everything. This I can't change. Oh, I'm always very judgmental. All of a sudden, he's not thinking. He's just reacting.
Right. Yeah,
definitely.
That's a good one. That's true. Picking back up.
Yeah, the nobles are not fucking happy, are they?
No, they're not. And then Baez has to jump in, and he says that the king and the nation are one and the same, that the nobles only borrowed their lands from him, and that the king regrets that he requires some portion of them back. But such is the spur of necessity. And then Glocta chimes in, and he goes, a quarter from each one of you. And then some nobles like, this will not stand. And then it's Lord Isher, because Baez says, oh, you don't think so? Those who do not think so may join Lord Brock in dusty exile and surrender all their lands to the crown instead of just a portion. Somebody says, the classic, this is an outrage. And then, it says that the king...
This is an outrage! A sham!
Yeah, and they say that the king has been first among equals, the greatest of nobles, but not above them. And that their votes brought him to the throne, and that they refused to blah, blah, blah. And then Glocta, he tells this gentleman, who apparently turns out to be Lord Huygen, that he dances close to a line, that he might wish to remain on the right side of it where it's safe. The other side will not suit you so well. And that the surveyor general will be assessing all your estates over the coming months. It will be wise for you all to lend him your fullest assistance. And everyone's just pissed, right? And then they're screaming, unprecedented, unacceptable. We refuse to be intimidated. And then Giselle, he springs up. He has his sword still in its scabbard, and he just starts slamming the table with it. And then he yells out like, I am the king, and I am not offering a choice. I am issuing a royal decree. Agile will be rebuilt and more glorious than ever, and that is the price. You have grown too used to a weak crown. So believe him when he says that those days are behind them. And then Baez kind of leans in close to Logan. He goes, surprisingly good at this, isn't he? And then, and the lords, are grumbling, but they sit back down as Giselle keeps talking. And, he says those that lent him their wholehearted support in the crisis will be exempt. But that list, to the shame of all the nobles, is very brief. As a matter of fact, it was friends from outside the borders of the Union who actually helped them in their time of need. And then Orso gets up, says, yes, I stand always at the side of my royal son and daughter. And then he seizes Giselle's face, kisses both his cheeks, and he goes, their friends are my friends. Their enemies, well, you're all smart guys. You can kind of figure that out. And then Giselle says, I thank you for your part. You have our gratitude. And also, the war between the Union and the North is at an end. Bethod, the tyrant, is dead, and there's a new order, and I'm proud to call the man who threw him down my friend, Logan Nine Fingers. It is fitting that we should stride onto this bold new future as brothers. And, Logan's the king of the Northmen. Logan gets up, and, he's still got some sore. He's sore. He's got some bruises. He goes, hey, right. He just, he puts Giselle in a fucking hug, squeezes the shit out of him. And then he says out loud, reckon that they'll be staying on their side of the white flow from now on. And then but then he says, unless my brother down here has trouble, of course. And then he just kind of stares at them all, and goes, "Don't make me fucking come back here."
I've got to say, as well. I love how Stephen Pacey does it in the audiobook, and he's like, "Don't you make me come back here!" Like he's talking to like a child or something.
I really like this part too because it actually is like one of those few little moments where you get to see like he's like being bros with him. He's not even trying. He's being sincere.
Yeah, he's being totally sincere here. And then, so he made sure to make it a threat. Giselle, then it goes back to Giselle. He says, that they won the wars, but now they must win the peace. And then Hoff is like, well said, of course. So there's only one order of business that remains before the open council stands of recess. Let us offer our thanks to Lord Baez, the first of the Magi, who, by the wisdom of his counsel and the power of his art, drove out the invader and saved the Union. And everyone starts to clap. And then
bravo!
Everyone claps except for Logan. And Logan's just like, ugh. Which I think is just hilarious. And then there's a bit of a break, but not too much of a break. And now we're back to Giselle's perspective. And he's watching all the nobles just file unhappily out of there. He's happy. He's like, yeah, fuck these assholes. But then he sees Therese. She's arguing with her dad, Duke Corso, about something. Not too sure. And then he kind of like turns around a bit, and then he sees Glocta, the new Archlector. And Glocta, he kind of comes up to Giselle and he goes, "Your Majesty, may I ask, is everything okay between you and the Queen? From what I hear, y'all don't even sleep in the same room." And Giselle's about to respond in a very negative way, as in, how dare you interfere with my personal business or whatever. But he saw Therese kind of give him a look that showcased her utter contempt for him. And he just says, he goes, "She can scarcely stand to be in the same country as me, let alone the same bed. The woman is an utter bitch." He doesn't know what to do. And then Glocta goes, "Oh, don't you worry. Let me talk to the Queen. I can be pretty persuasive when I have the ability to be so. I understand your difficulties. I actually myself am just recently married." And Giselle goes, "Oh, really?" And he's not really paying attention. He's feigning interest. He goes, "Oh, who's the lady?" And then Glocta goes, "Oh, I think you two are like kind of acquainted, maybe somewhat. Artie is her name. Artie Dan Glocta." And he smiles, and then Giselle goes, "Wait, nah." And he goes, Yes, my old friend Colin West's sister. Yes, her, yes. Oh, thank you. Congratulations, I accept. Thanks, bye." And he turns around and walks away. And Giselle is just standing there, shocked. He's just, what? Now he thinks that, Artie was desperate, maybe with Colin West being ill, she had nowhere else to turn. And then he was even thinking the last time he saw her in the hospital, he was thinking maybe one day with time they can kind of figure that out. Nope, now it's gone. Artie is married, and to a man that Giselle despised, a man who's on his own close counsel. And to make it even worse, a man who, in his own moment of madness, just confessed the total emptiness of Giselle's own marriage. So he had made himself appear weak, vulnerable, absurd, all in one breath. And so now it seemed that he had loved Artie with an unbearable passion, that they shared something that he would never find again. How could he have not realized it at the time? How could he have allowed it to all fall apart for this? And the sad fact was, he supposed that love on its own was nothing like enough, which hurts. It's a bit of a break. Wait, we have a break in the chapter, but that last line, oof, ain't that the truth sometimes?
Oh my god, it's extremely poignant and right to the point there. Like, and it is such a shame, isn't it, that Giselle and Artie never got to be together properly.
That's true.
But then knowing Joe, that wouldn't have worked out anyway.
Yeah, knowing him, crazy bastard.
This links really well with his character, you know, like he is doing a good job at being king, but like he still is losing any semblance of like friendship and companionship, happiness. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, yeah. Art as the last glimpse of Artie. Now he feels all vulnerable against Glocta. You know, and Logan obviously isn't going to stay in Agile forever. So.
Yeah. What's that saying? Heavy is the head that wears the crown.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's Giselle right now. That shit is an anvil. So like I said, there's a bit of a break. We're back to Logan's perspective, and he opens the door, and he notices that the room is empty. So we figure out that he was looking for Pharaoh. He went to Pharaoh's room. Pharaoh's gone. He's like, motherfucker. Nothing ever works out the way he wants to work out. And now he's just pissed. You know, he was in a bad mood with the open council meeting, whatever, earlier. And now this is just, he's just in a bad mood. So goes down the hall, kind of just barrels into the room, this other room, and it's Bias's room. And Bias is drinking some tea and there's a servant pouring some tea into his cup. And Bias goes, "Oh, the king of the Northmen. How are things?" And you know, he goes straight to the point. "Where's Pharaoh?" And Bias goes, she's gone. She left a little bit of a mess behind, but I was able to clean up, you know, as I often do myself. And then, you know, Logan just says, "Where?" And, you know, Bias is not sure. He goes, south, I'd imagine, vengeance or something. You know, she's always talked about that. A very ill-tempered woman. And then Logan says, "Well, she's changed." And he says, Bias retorts, "You know, great events. None of us are quite the same. Now, will you take tea?" And because he said that, the servant, you know, hurries forward to Logan with some, you know, ready to give some tea. And Logan just grabs him and he just throws him across the room. And then Bias goes, "You could have just said no."
I like, again, it's just that whole dichotomy with, oh my god, Bias is just so evil. But like, I mean, sure, but he's acting like, "Oh, why did you take Pharaoh? Why did you take away from me?" And then he's like, "Tea? Why would I drink tea?" It's like,
yeah,
okay, you know, why are you, bro?
Yep.
What he's doing is he's doing something that he has done before, which is just shifting the blame to somebody who is convenient to do so. He did it with Bethod, now he's doing it with Bias.
He's deflecting and he's projecting. Absolutely. Absolutely. He even says, when, you know, Bias says, "You could have just said no," he goes, "Man, fuck that, you old bastard." And Bias is like, "What the? Whoa, buddy. Who pissed in your coffee this morning?"
Bias is being really fucking mild-mannered about this.
He really is. He goes, "You're king now, and it's not good to let your passions rule you. Kings like that never last. You still have enemies in the north. Calder's scale. You know, manners should be repaid like manners. I have always thought you've been helpful to me, so I can be helpful in return." And Logan's like, I think Logan thinks he's being smart, but it's like, he goes, "As you were to Bethod," and Bia's like, "Yeah, and Logan goes, "Much good it did him." And Bia goes, "Well, when he had my help, he prospered. He did great. But then he became proud, unruly, and demanded everything his own way. Without my help, well, you know, you see what happened." And Logan just straight up tells him, "Stay out of my business, wizard," and puts his hand on, you know, the sword, the Maker's sword.
Just such a over the top reaction.
It is, but you know what? Bias don't got the seed, and the bloody nine is the bloody nine. We don't know. Anyway, but Bias, he really is, at this point, he's not even scared. He's just like a little annoyed. He goes, "Someone beneath me would be upset. Did I not save your life from Bethod? Did I not give you purpose when you had nothing? Did I not take you to the very edge of the world and shown you wonders very few men have seen? These are poor manners, Logan. Matter of fact, the sword you're holding right now was a gift from me to you. What the fuck?" And I hope we might have come to an agreement of some sort. Logan says no. He goes, "Okay, so I see. So not even." Logan says, "No, we're done. Looks as if I'll never be a better man, but I could try not to be a worse man. I can try that much at least." And Baez goes, okay, well, you surprised me to the last. I thought you a courageous yet restrained man, calculating yet compassionate. I thought you, above all, a realistic man. But the Northmen have ever been prone to petulance. I observe in you now an obstinate streak and a destructive temper. I see the bloody nine at last. And Logan goes, well, I'm happy to disappoint you. Seems we misjudged each other entirely. I took you for a great man. Now I realize my mistake. What have you done here? Baez goes, what have I done? I combined 3 pure disciplines of
He goes through the whole thing again.
Here you go again. Yep, he's doing it again. I combined 3 pure disciplines of magic, and I forged a new one. It seems you do not understand the achievement, Nine Fingers, but I forgive you. I realize that book learning has never been your strongest suit. Such a thing has not been contemplated since before the old time, when Au split his gifts amongst his sons. None will appreciate
blah fucking blah.
Yeah.
He just goes through this whole fucking thing.
Yeah, he goes, none will appreciate my greatest achievement. Seems none except Khalul maybe, and it's unlikely he will ever give his congratulations. No, power such as this has not been released within the circle of the world. Name drop since, and then Logan finishes it for him. He goes, since Glustra destroyed himself in Alcus, and Baez goes, well, since you mentioned it. And then Logan says, the results are the same, except you just brought just a little bit less careless slaughter, and you ruined a smaller part of a smaller city in a smaller, meaner time. Otherwise, what's the difference between you and him? And then Baez just goes, well, thought that was obvious. Glustra lost. And then Logan stood there for a while, and then he just walked away from the room. And he's thinking to himself that, he probably should have kept Baez on his side, but he was just too damn pissy. He says that, that would have been a realistic thing to do. But then it's just the way that Logan's father has actually always said that Logan had never really been that realistic. And that is the end of our second chapter read through.
And that definitely exposes another one of Baez's sort of evilisms. Like, is it really a war crime if you win?
Is it really, though? Is it really?
Yeah,
you sure about that?
I mean, he basically is just...
Go ahead. Try it.
No, I was just going to say, you're right. He's just reiterating what all of our governments have ever said about in case we win. It doesn't matter. We won.
Definitely true.
It's the cost of victory. Cost of victory. But I will say, if you're well, first of all, what's your ratings, boys, for anything?
I'm gonna give this one a 5 again. Gonna go quite low for this one.
You're gonna give it 5? Okay, yeah.
Because I think these 3 chapters, they all have a bit of a theme about them, a bit of a format.
We'll see.
Get a setup. Yeah, we get a setup and then a payoff with Baez. And this for Logan. Logan's already confronted Baez once already. Not that long ago, a couple of chapters ago. So this kind of does feel a little bit like treading new ground, treading the same ground again.
Well, I don't think he didn't really confront him though.
Sort of. When he kind of says about Bethard and how that all worked out.
Right, but Baez, like, either Logan wasn't completely overt.
No, he's definitely like, come along now, like, but what I mean.
Right. Yeah, like he says, like, Bethard told me some interesting stuff, how you apparently bargained for my life. And Baez's like, yeah, of course, you're welcome. I mean, you didn't want to know, but hey, that's it. Like, I don't think he really picked up on Logan's displeasure. It wasn't that overt. Like, Logan didn't know really how to bring it up. But go ahead, continue. 5.
So they haven't had like a proper confrontation yet. But yeah, you know what I mean. It's, again, super short. And we get some reflection from Tal as well. The scene with just Alan Glockner is quite funny and very heartbreaking in the moment. Like, but yeah, I'm going to give it a 5.
Okay, Harrison.
I like the whole thing with Baez being perceived as bad, and I just think it's interesting from a reader's perspective. Like, it's a lot of people who've only read the series once that are very defensive of Logan, which is fine. But they in Darius Logan is not all bad. But it seems like this. I think they get caught up in the moment of like, oh yeah, Bias is such a bastard, and they get caught up in the moment with him. Whenever Joe is so clever at like we just said, he's projecting and everything, and it's not even Bias is not being unreasonable here at all. He's acting the same he ever has with Logan, very amenable. He likes having a conversation with him. There's nothing actually wrong. It's all just Logan, and Logan's doing the exact same thing as he did before, and it's like I don't know. It's just so interesting, that the whole divided Logan base is, I think, because of this perception that like is whenever things happen like this, where Logan has a reaction to something, and because of the way the story is written on purpose, you initially think, yeah, Logan's totally right, even though it's just not the truth. So I'm gonna give it a 4 out of 9 though, because it's I like that, but that's I think you're right, George. It's kind of not really treading new ground.
Yeah, I'll give it a 5 out of 9 fingers. Short. We see Logan's self-hatred come into play in the beginning of the chapter. We see Giselle's self-hatred too, because like at first you kind of think that maybe there is some hope for him, right? When Glocta talks to him about his marriage with Therese, and Glocta says, "Well, I'll talk to her." And then, but he kind of just gives that little knife thrust to the liver, like, "Ooh, I'm married the bitch that you love. That's right, motherfucker. That's right." Sorry, I went full curse words there. I married the woman you loved, and you're a goofball for not marrying her yourself. But you had to be king. Anyway, and then we see Logan acting, honestly, in my opinion, like a petulant child, because he goes to Pharaoh's room now again after the fact. Finds her room empty and goes to Bias like, "What did you do to Pharaoh?" But when he went to her room previously, he could have, like Harrison, you brought up, he could have just talked to her or stayed, try to figure it out, try to, okay, see from her perspective, okay, something happened here. She's not exactly the same. Maybe talk to Bias a little bit more, but why was Pharaoh so changed? Maybe went back. Nope. Logan just loves to feel bad for himself. Logan just loves to say, that he's a shitty person. He hates himself and there's nothing he can do about it. All these options of all these opportunities to actually improve himself, to do something completely fucking different. He says he can't take those opportunities, but we know he could. He just doesn't. So whatever. I'm glad actually Baez kind of set him straight to the point where Baez had the last word. Logan had to think about what he said and was like, skirt, and just walked away. So 5 out of 9 fingers for me.
I like it.
Well, thank you, Harrison. Thank you. So let's move on to our next segment, which is our character spot. Boys, you want to take this one away?
Well, you had the idea, Jeff.
Yeah, but I talk a lot. I want to.
You brought it up.
I always pass off these segments to you guys, though, don't I?
Okay, Harrison, do you want to do this one?
Oh God, do I need to do it?
No, I can.
Yeah.
Do it. Okay, all right.
So for our character spot, as we've done a couple times now, because we're getting close to the end of the series, as there isn't really anybody new in this section, we are going to talk about the tellers of secrets. These entities that have, obviously, they had sway with Glustrad, they've had sway with Ptolemy, but, and to Pharaoh's credit, no sway with her. But it is interesting, like, they're known as the tellers of secrets. I wonder, like, if the other side, if they're an actual, like, group, if they're more sentient, or if, it's like all of it's like the other side's voice. It's hard to say, but they definitely seem like individual people, or is that just part of the, the menace? I don't know.
It's very hard to say. Like, we get very, very, very little information about the other side, and what we do comes from Baez. So, unreliable.
But we're also getting first-person view, information from Pharaoh.
Yeah,
Pharaoh-
but they're
Pharaoh and
literally
Ptolemy. Don't forget-
called the tellers of secrets. Like, I
But don't
imagine
forget-
they're not the most straightforward people to deal with.
Right. You don't want to trust somebody that just tells all the secrets. But
Exactly.
but don't forget Ptolemy too. She's also somebody that has had,
Yeah, and look at her. She was fucking crazy.
Yeah.
hey.
Rightfully so. Rightfully angry.
Yes, thank you. All right.
But
Hundreds of
still
years.
crazy.
It's still crazy.
Also, I did think of a slight answer involving the Tellers of Secrets. How you talked about how long, like the plot hole of how long has Ptolemy just been dicking around. Like,
Thank you. I was going to ask about that. Go ahead.
I was going to mention that it could have been that she resisted the Tellers of Secrets for a super long time and fucking did other stuff until she just said, "Fuck it, I'm gonna fucking kill by it."
I like to think, what if she resisted for so long, right? But then the Tellers of Secrets are like, oh shit, Ptolemy, did you hear? Baez is back in town with an apprentice named fucking Malachus Pie and some Northmen. Oh shit, come on, girl, you know you want to get that revenge. And she's like, you know what? Fuck
Hell
that
yeah,
motherfucker.
brother.
Hell yeah. Give me them powers. I'll get that seed for you. Let's imagine that.
It is very interesting. It also brings into question too, like the Tellers of Secrets. Like, it's weird that they obviously they need a connection to their side. You always have to be a devil blood, but it does bring into question like how Juvens and Canadius and maybe even Badesh and Eus, how they dealt with it. Yeah, Glustrad obviously like just gave into them. But whenever they moved the seed, like Canadius, I wonder why Canadius wasn't affected, because he was obviously working on it.
Oh shit! So you think? Oh shit! So that's a very wow, Harrison, good one. So they must have at least heard the voices.
I mean, I would imagine they would have. I mean, there's no way the Tellers of Secrets would have, with them taking every opportunity to open the gates and get back to Circle of the World, that they would, if they got in contact with somebody as powerful as Canadius Juvens, that they would just be like, oh yeah, nah, we won't bother them.
Right. So let me. All right, hold on. What about? I have a question. So we don't know about Ptolemy's mother, right? We assume she was born out of
wedlock. Yes, probably out of wedlock.
Well, yeah, wedlock something, but she was born, but we don't know anything about her mother. So do we think that her mother was human?
Yeah, that's the implication. Yeah.
Implication. Okay. So honestly, Canadius, Juvens, Glustrad, Badesh, they're probably just as pure of demon devil blood as Eus, right? Because Eus just comes out to Earth and then boom, chaos. But he has his 4 kids. But
then are their mothers human as well?
Yes, they are, because
I don't think so.
No, it is, because Bios even says that. He even talks about how all the things that A's could do, where they're talking about devil bloods in the Great Plains, and they're like, oh, does that mean she can do stuff with magic? And he was like, Bios like, hell no. Even Juvens, even the sons were only a quarter. And they could, they couldn't do the things that A's could, because A's was half.
He said, wait, no.
Yeah, A's is half. A's is half.
A's is half blood.
A's is half blood?
Yeah, because I remember there's a scene where he says, like, A's was only a half blood, but it would blind you to look upon him.
Really?
Yeah, because why else? Why would a demon want to close the gates? A full-blooded demon would never do that.
All right, I'm gonna look this up. This probably was before they're hanged, or the blade itself? The blade.
Yeah,
Before
it's before they hanged. Yeah.
Okay, I'll look that up. But okay, good to know. All right.
Anyways, the point is, we just think I like that the Tellers of Secrets are like their group of people. It seems like, and like it's not just like the evil side. Like it's kind of cool that they have like their own name, and like I would love to see the Tellers of Secrets, like that term being brought up more. It's such a unique name for
it is
a group of people.
I imagine. Do you think that the Tellers of Secrets are like an elected group of demons?
It's like a democratic system.
Yeah, it's like, all right, we need to vote for the motherfuckers that are gonna pester the shit out of anybody that can hear us.
My son, he's chatty.
Democratic system, love it. The Democrats, You guys have to figure out something with the like Republican version. The
Yeah, they're just the Republicans.
wait, no, wait. The Republicans.
That's terrible.
It's getting there. There's something there.
Listen, the Republicans can just be the Republicans and it still works.
We do not take sides here on the Circle of the World podcast.
No,
so we are going to make fun of everybody equally. God damn it. I will not allow this.
I think Democratic.
Democratic is hilarious though. Democratic is hilarious though. It's fucking great. I love it.
Either ways,
that's great. Good job, George. I love that. Do you have anything else, George? Your end to talk about the Tales of Secrets.
I just having a thought, but I think you guys have kind of superseded what I had to say because
go for it.
I'm really thinking about it now. So if A is split the world up between devils and humans, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there's got to be a line there, like how much of a devil do you have to be to get banished?
Right. So I have a whole thing with this.
Ooh, is this like for a YouTube video? Can we do a YouTube video?
I do want to do a YouTube video about it.
Sorry. I'm excited. Sorry.
Yeah, we'll have a whole speculation video.
I mean, I was a bit skeptical when Jeff, when you came up with the idea for this character spot, but now I think about it, like, you could talk for hours on this.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we should probably move on.
You're welcome. We will move on, but we will be having a YouTube segment in the future about this and how I'm right and they're both wrong. All right, so let's move on to our third and final chapter read-through, which is Behind the Throne, wink, wink. And so we start off with the perspective of Giselle, then Luthar, who is our man. That was Harrison's cue. But okay.
Harrison.
All right.
I just was trying to see if I didn't say anything, how funny it would be. It was pretty funny.
Okay, he's really not gonna say anything. All right, fine.
Maybe anyway. I will later. It's got it. I need
fine.
some.
Fine. Have it your way.
It has to be natural, Jeffrey.
Have it your way, Mr. fucking Burger King. Who the fuck knew? All right, anyway. So.
It's just
King Burger.
The Burger King slogan, have it your way. Anyway.
Okay.
So anyway, he goes, so Giselle, as soon he's staring out a window, and then he hears the door open, and he just knows who it is. He doesn't even have to look up. Who would have the balls to walk into the king's chambers without even knocking? He just knew. He's like, motherfucker, bias. Calls him his jailer, his tormentor, his shadow, the man who destroyed half the Agriant and made a ruin of beautiful Adua, and now smiles and revels in the applause as though he was the savior of the nation. Oh, Lord. And yet more demands, more compromises, more talk of what had to be done. Oh, Giselle is not... He's not happy with Baez. Let's just say that, right, boys?
Yeah. To be quick devil's advocate here, no one ever thinks about whenever they're all talking about all the eaters and stuff. What would happen if the eaters just did kill Baez? What do you think those 100 words would do next?
You know what I bet they would.
You think they just fucking go home?
No. I think.
I mean, it was fairly clear what the stakes were. Like, wasn't it? They were going to enslave the entire fucking union.
Right. There were two options, though. Right? If you want to go back there, right? The first option, right, was when Malzagert was at the gates, gave him the terms.
Yeah.
And remember, those terms to Giselle's ears, they're like, wait a minute. These terms ain't so bad, actually. If Giselle would have took those terms, honestly, think Giselle just rules however he wants to rule as long as he pays tribute to the emperor. Now, the second option is, if we're talking about like if Gurkul is victorious, either via surrender or via conquest. And if we're talking about via conquest, then they probably install Lord Brock and kill Baez and Giselle, right? Yeah. But I bet you right now, just by the end of this chapter, Giselle's really wishing he would have took Malzigurt's terms, you know?
Yeah, probably. It would have been the best option.
Right. So,
anyways.
Go ahead. So he's thinking all to himself all these negative things about Baez, and then we just hear Baez goes, "Your Majesty," but with a very, very, very thin layer of respect. And Giselle goes, "What now?" And then he looks at Baez. He turns around, looks at Baez, and sees that Baez has his traveling clothes on, baby. He has his little raincoat, his umbrella, his duck boots. Oh, he's ready to go out to jaunt on the countryside, right? And then Giselle's just like, are we going somewhere? Are we living our best life? What are we doing?
Dad's leaving the house. We should have a party.
Yep. He's like, ooh, can I have a house party? And then Baez goes, yes, I am leaving Adua today. And Giselle goes, today? No way. Oh, my mom. I could do it. He's thinking to himself, I could do whatever the fuck I want. I can.
Yeah, he's like rushing him out the door.
Yeah, he's like, I can switch to the closed council and everything. He goes, oh, man. Oh, listen. You've done so much, but we'll be so sorry to lose you, of course. And then Baez goes, yes. There are some arrangements that we need to make first. And then Giselle's, of course. By all means. Yes, of course. But Baez goes, I have spoken with your new archlector, Glocta. Giselle goes, yes, have you indeed? He goes, and Baez retorts, yes. He's a very sharp man. He's greatly impressed me. I have asked him to speak in my stead while I am absent from the closed council. And Giselle's already kind of going through, like, how can I get rid of Glocta? Do I just toss him from a tower? Do I just, like, excuse him with the piece of paper? What do I do? And he goes, yeah. Okay, yes. Really, great. And then Baez goes, I would recommend that you listen closely to his opinion. And he goes, yes, of course, I will. The best of luck on your journey, by the way. And then Baez goes, I would in fact like you to do as he says. And then Giselle just kind of like stops and goes,
oh, hell no.
Wait. He doesn't do that just yet. He goes, to be clear, you want me to kind of obey him? And Baez is just staring right at Giselle. He goes, basically, yes. Giselle is momentarily speechless. And he goes, you have taken a high hand of late in my affairs. I am in no mind. Wait, what does he say? He says, I'm in no mind to trade one overbearing advisor for another. And then Baez, he goes, that man is going to be very useful to you, to us. Decisions are going to have to be made that you are not going to want to have to make. Certain actions that you would rather just not do yourself. So people who live in sparkling palaces need other people that are willing to carry their orders, or else it'll just pile up in the what?
Sorry.
What?
I think it was ordure, not orders.
Oh shit!
Sorry, Jeff.
You're right.
Oh, it's the Englishman.
Oh, sure. Honestly, you're honestly right. I kind of like glanced at it, saw ORD, and saw okay.
Always the American, Jeff.
Shut up, Harrison, you Oklahoman. Fuck. Where was I starting off?
Also, we're called Oklahomies now, bro. What the fuck?
Shut up, Tulsi.
Oklahomies.
Tulsi.
What the fuck?
Sorry. So sorry. Anyway, Baez says that people that live in rich palaces need others that are willing to carry away their order, or else it's just gonna pile up in the polished corridors, and then one day it eventually bury all of them. This is very simple and obvious, But Giselle, you have not attended to Baez, apparently. Now Giselle here is tight. He's upset. He goes, no. You failed to attend Sandan Glocta, that crippled bastard. But although his inner monologue right after this says that he realized his unfortunate choice of words, but had to continue on regardless, or because he's just angrier than ever. And sitting beside me on the closed council, leering over my shoulder every day of my life, and now you would have him dictate to me. Unacceptable, insufferable, impossible. We are no longer in the time of Herod the Great. I don't know what you think, that you can just talk to me in whatever manner you want, because I am king here and I refuse to be steered. And Baez, he closes his eyes, takes a slow breath. He goes, oh boys, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. He says that Giselle cannot understand what it's like to live as long as Baez has, to know that all that he knows, that you people, aka humans, are dead in the blink of an eye to him, and that they have to be taught all the same old lessons all over again. The same lessons that Juvens taught Stolicus 1,000 years ago. And it becomes very, very tiresome. And Giselle he's still angry. He goes, I apologize if I bore you. But Baez says that he accepts Giselle's apology. And Giselle goes, oh, I was joking, duh. And then Baez goes, oh, wow, your wit is so very sharp. I didn't realize I was cut. And Giselle goes, oh, you mocking me? You mock me? And then Baez goes, it's easy, baby. It's easy. Every man is just a baby to me. When you get to my age, you see that history just moves in circles. Time is a flat circle. And so many times I've guided this goddamn nation back from the brink of this destruction and then on to even greater glory. And what does Baez ask in return? Just some sacrifices. If only that they understood the sacrifices that Baez has made on behalf of the cattle, which is what he's calling humans. And Giselle is upset. Yeah, he's upset. He goes, and what about everyone that's died? What about everyone that's lost everything? Those cattle, air quotes, as you put it. What about, are they happy with their sacrifices? What about those who suffer from this fucking illness that still suffer? Even my own close friend among them. He's talking about Colin West here. He can't notice that it's very similar to the illness that you described in fucking AUKUS. Can't help but thinking your magic might be the motherfucking cause. And Baez, to his credit or discredit, didn't make an effort to deny it. He just says, I deal in the moment. I can't really concern myself with the fate of every little present, every little human. Neither can you. I've tried to teach you this, but it seems you failed to learn the lesson. Giselle goes, bitch, you're mistaken. I just refuse to learn it, all right? I don't like the way you govern. It's poison. I don't care for how you govern. It smacks of tyranny. And Baez says government is tyranny. At its best, it is dressed in pretty colors. And Giselle goes, well, your complete disregard for the lives of my people, I will not stand for it. I have moved beyond you. You are no longer wanted here, no longer needed. I will find my own way from now on. He waves Baez away with a dismissive hand and says, you may leave. And Baez goes, may I indeed? And there's a bit of a change in the ambiance.
Yeah, that's. I don't know how you haven't read the audiobook, Jeff, but fuck me, that line is just chilling as fuck.
Mm-hmm.
Like Baez does very rarely actually gets angry.
Yeah, we remember the last couple times he's gotten angry.
Yeah, people exploded.
Mamoon, you dumb snake!
Damn those bitches.
Damn those cursed bitches. He goes, I perceive that I have been very soft with you. I have coddled you like a favorite grandchild, and you have grown willful, which is hilarious because he never thought Giselle was a favorite grandchild. He says, a mistake that I shall not make again. A responsible guardian should never be shy with the whip. And Giselle goes, I am the son of kings. I will not. And then he kind of stops and then and he just starts vomiting all over the place to the point where it's so much pain and he crashes onto the floor and he's basically rolling in his own vomit. And then Baez kind of walks towards him slowly and he goes, I have no idea what makes you think that you could talk to me like this. In case you forgot, homie, I am the first of the Magi. He goes, son of kings? Pfft, I'm disappointed after everything we've been through that you thought I would believe that kind of lie. That was for the morons in the motherfucking streets. But it seems like, people in the palace, they buy that shit easy. I bought you from a whore. You cost me 6 marks. She wanted 20, but I drive a hard bargain, baby. And ouch!
Jesus Christ.
Giselle's
That's a revelation.
Oh my lord, he's rolling around his own throat. He can't retort to that, but he's like, oh fuck, my mommy was like, what? And then here we go. So he's obviously crying. He's crying from the pain. He's crying from that revelation. And then Baez keeps going on. He goes, I had other babies waiting though. I'm not going to put all my eggs in one basket. He goes, other sons of, mysterious quote unquote parentage ready to step into the role. Oh, there was one family called Brent, as I recall, and plenty more besides. Oh, Brent, that just ate at Giselle even more.
He's like, I knew I always hated that bastard for a reason.
And then Baez says, but you floated to the top, Giselle, like a turd in the bath, which is hilarious. When he crossed the bridge in the Agriant that day and saw Giselle fully grown, he just knew he was the one. He just looked the part, and you can't teach that. And you even speak like a king, which is even great, even better. But if you insist on being difficult, if you insist on going your own way about things, well, then there are other options. Even kings die unexplained deaths. So he goes, I made you out of nothing, out of air. With a word, I can unmake you. Like that, you can be replaced. So he goes, he leans a little closer to Giselle. He goes, now, dolt, bastard, son of a whore. Consider carefully your answers to these questions. You will do as your archlector advises. Yes. And then Giselle goes, yes. You will be guided by him in all things. Yes. You will abide by his orders in public and in private. Yes, yes. And Baez just goes, good. I knew that you would say so because although I know that you're arrogant, ignorant, and ungrateful, I also know this. You're a coward. Remember that. So I trust this is one lesson you won't ignore. And then the pain kind of slowly ebbs away from Giselle. And Giselle manages to say, I hate you, whatever. And Baez just laughs and he goes, like I give a fuck. Me, Baez, first, apprentice of Juvens, who threw down that master maker, who forged the union, who destroyed the 100 words. I don't give a fuck whether you like me, you idiot. I only care that you obey. And you will, right? And Giselle goes, yes. He's like, then, your majesty, I take my leave. Pray that you don't make me return, motherfucker. Oh. And then, sorry. And then Giselle kind of just lays there in his own vomit and sick for some time because the pain's gone away, right? As soon as Baez left, the pain's gone away. And then Giselle kind of like pulls himself, he crawls, looks, pulls himself to the window and looks down. And he sees that Baez and Yoru Sulfur are walking, out of the Agriant, supposedly, whatever. And Yoru has the box where the seed is. What else? That he has also the staff. And then Baez kind of just stops, suddenly turns around and looks like towards the window, and Giselle just kind of like hides in the curtains. He goes, And then
Oh my God.
and he could see Baez, and Baez just lingers there just a moment longer, and you can see the faintest flicker of a fucking smile, and then just Baez and Yoru walk away, with the Knights of the Body flanking the gate. And then Giselle's just there, and he's just thinking like, "Fuck me, man! I had it great. I was, in the army. I was playing cards with my homies, and everything was great. And now I'm a fucking king, and this sucks so much fucking dick." And now he realizes that he's a coward, and now he just starts crying. He cries because he's a coward, but he also cries with relief that Baez is not around right now. And that is the end of that chapter. Boys, how do you rate that?
I reckon I'm gonna give it a 5 out of 9.
You're giving it a 5. Okay.
Yeah, I think it's really middle of the road. I mean, it's basically it's kind of like a normal Baez arc where he gets slowly more and more irritated with everybody, and he's pretty patient, and then he reaches the point, and then he fucking blows up and fires everybody who's boss physically and mentally, puts Giselle in his place and moves on. But from Giselle's perspective, like I totally get why he's like standing up for himself and everything like that. And at the same time, I also totally get why he would be cowed. Like he literally used like force powers on him to treat him,
like
to
brush
bully
his
him.
guts.
Yeah. Like any of us would be like, yes, of course, Lord Baez. Anything you say, Daddy. Like no one would have said, no, I shall die right here. Because what good is that gonna do? Like I don't know. Yeah, it's just our coward.
Oh, that's true.
Sure, but is he only a coward? Like how Logan is only a bad man? No, he is much more than that.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
And he definitely does not sit idly by.
No, it's good that Giselle actually stands up to Baez in the end, even if he doesn't go his way. Look, I think I'm going to go and give it a 6, just a little bit higher, because I think it is hilarious and completely in character for Giselle that he doesn't realise what Baez is doing. Like, Glockton knows about the Valent and Bulk stuff, and Logan knows about the stuff with Bethord and everything like that. But Giselle just seems to be completely fucking oblivious to this.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Even though it's obvious that Baez put him on the throne, and it was the only reason why he's there, because Giselle didn't even fucking know when he was announcing it.
Right.
And yet Giselle doesn't stop and go, oh shit, maybe this guy is someone I don't want to fuck with.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So it is good to see arrogant Giselle get put in his place.
Also, I like how he, is he a coward? I mean, the fact that he showed up to Baez at all shows that he isn't, doesn't it?
No, definitely. I mean, I don't think, like you said, I don't think anybody can blame anybody for, a backing down from extreme fucking painful death. That doesn't make you a coward. There's no point. Like you said, It's not going to achieve anything.
Right.
Yeah.
How about you, Jeff?
I would give it a 6 and a knuckle. I'm going a little bit higher, just because this chapter is the final nail in the coffin, and so to speak, in terms of just seeing Baez in totality, right? And we see just how, even when he was talking to Pharaoh, to Logan, even the prior chapters where he's kind of like, oh, it's regrettable that there's casualties, et cetera, et cetera. This is him at the point we see Baez where he's just all he cares about is people that obey him. All he cares about is accumulating all the power he could have, especially against, in his mind, this one-on-one battle with Khalul that's never ended, right? And even then, but it's not even because of Khalul. It's independent of Khalul. Baez has always just been very power hungry. And we see Baez just kind of put the fucking screws to Giselle. And we see Giselle, we see his progression, but also his regression, right? At the very beginning of this chapter, he's very defiant. He's brave. You could say he's arrogant, maybe, sure. But he's just tired of Baez at the end of the day. He's just fucking exhausted. He wants, if he's king, and he didn't ask to be king, he wants to be able to rule how he wants to rule, as a king should. Then he realizes, the puppeteer and all this stuff, that it's Baez. And he knew what Baez is capable of prior to this, right? He's seen Baez explode people. He's seen Baez explode landscapes. He's seen Baez do terrible things. And he thinks just that on the basis of authority alone, right? The word of law, that because Giselle is royalty incarnate, that Baez will adhere to that. But Baez just goes, motherfucker, I will kill you easily. And then because of that, we see Giselle kind of revert back to his initial, at his heart, he's a coward, but not necessarily a coward. He's just someone that when you're faced with a fucking all-powerful wizard, I mean, who's gonna actually stand up to that? Really? If he's still offering you the chance to live and offering you the chance to live while being king, you're gonna take it. You're gonna take it. I'm sorry. No one is. Very, 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 very few people would not take that and rather just be exploded. Even Logan walked away. You know what I mean? So, in a way, it's kind of like this little theme that we'll be seeing with Joe, whereas people they might desire to change. And they might improve themselves. They might change in spurts and segments and everything, but it's cyclical in nature, right? They will revert back to who they were at the beginning. At the end of the series, they will revert back to who they were at the beginning in some ways. Mm-hmm. And so for that, I'll give it a 6 and a knuckle.
Okay.
Alrighty. So let's move on to our final segment, which is a community interaction segment. Harrison, this is all you, baby.
All right. So start trying to do some of these polls again. And as we start getting back into the swing, I'm doing more for you guys. This one is the first one. I think I'm going to keep doing some of these in the following weeks. The most heartwarming scene in the Blade itself. And I did some. I did actually miss a few, which I'll mention, and I'll see so many people did comment them. I put down Yulwei consoling Pharaoh in the Badlands, Galacta and West talk, Kwai thanking Logan at the library, and Fordley's send-off. As it should, I think. Galacta's and West talk won by a pretty big margin, which is a really heartwarming spot. Even though, ironically, on the surface, it's not that heartwarming, but the subtext in that conversation is incredible, especially for it only being the end of one book. It's like the climax almost. So it's pretty impressive that Joe's able to pull something like that off. It's such in these characters that we haven't even seen that long. And then, of course, the second was Fordley's send-off, which is no surprise there either.
Mm-hmm. Everybody gets teary about Fordley.
I don't.
Rude.
How dare.
Rude. That's why you're the Adeptus Historical, not the Adeptus Demonic, asshole.
How do you know that?
Uh-oh.
Also, then one of the commenters, overall satisfaction, said Gorse lifting up Giselle and helping him celebrate after him losing in the final round is like a devastating loss, and it completely changed Gorse's life. And so it's some crazy sportsmanship that he shows to Giselle, which of course, as we know, Gorse's psyche later on is probably because he was like, holy shit, I met someone who could beat me. I respect him so much. I never met a true opponent, which is ironic in so many different ways.
Right.
But we'll get to that later. But I did forget about that scene. We had several people mention different things inside of different books. So we'll get to those whenever the time comes. But good moment overall. Misery Hero said Galacta's boys making sure he had a good chair.
To torture from.
That? Yeah, to torture from.
That was a nice moment. I did like that. I can't believe you didn't put the pot in the poll.
I know, but then it would have won. But just what I said here. Logan says, Logan longing for his cookie pot. And he was like, in all seriousness, probably blacked out the words that told her his funeral, which is funny because obviously that's later. So I said,
people do not understand sometimes. You can make it as clear as you like, but some people are just gonna miss it.
Yeah, which is all fine. It's all for fun.
They might read quickly, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I responded, yeah, that's cool and all, but like if I put the cook pot down, it would have won. No matter what. Oh, I said run though. Oh God. I didn't realize that.
It's too late.
Too late.
Too late.
And then somebody also down here at the bottom said that they loved our podcast, the Warring Kind guy. That was very sweet of him.
Oh, so nice. We
So-
love that. Appreciate that.
We're gonna keep doing that in future, some more of these, and maybe some other different scenes and stuff, because I think it's cool to talk about these different moments that are really stand out. So
Mm-hmm.
Well, thanks
That's
so
it for
much
me,
for that,
Jeff.
Harrison. That's brilliant.
Yeah. Do you want to say anything else? Like maybe some upcoming ideas that you might have, or you're gonna continue this little?
no, well, I'm gonna keep doing these polls, but we'll also be having to talk about the giveaway soon. So, but we
Yeah.
already just addressed that in the beginning. So
Yeah,
Yes.
absolutely. That's our show, everyone. We want to thank you all for listening and supporting this podcast. As you all know, this is a passion project between the three of us, and your support really does mean a lot.
join us next week as we cover good men, evil men, and not what you wanted.
And keep an eye out on social media. We're on Instagram, we're on Twitter, we're on Reddit. Share our new post coming up to win a copy of The Great Change in Other Lies.
And if you haven't already, please subscribe to our podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, or any podcast app that you use. And please make sure to rate and review this podcast. Thank you all again for listening.
And I say, I am righteous.